Welcome to the After the Show Movie Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Ascully and Cidtalk. We're addicted to movies. Are you? Good afternoon, Cidtalk. I'm addicted to movies. You're addicted to movies. We're all addicted to movies.
You's talking for me? You's talking for me?
Yeah.
I don't know about addicted.
I mean,
we're in love with? Let's say in love with. In lust with?
Movies.
Or is it just long-term relationship with?
Both of those things.
We like movies. And that's not the before the after the show discussion. It was quite brief. Looking into this movie, you checking some stuff, me going out and moving some plants around,
Yeah.
General pre-podcast activities.
We had a big storm this week. Yeah, actually fried one of the ports on my router. I'm mad at that storm. Bastard.
I mean, I've heard all about it.
You've done some gardening.
I'm tuning out of your anger at the storm routine.
I'm very angry.
I know.
But also happy that it didn't take everything else out. Just one thing. That's good. Phew. Cidtalk, what's the before the after the show discussion? Or was that it?
That was it. We just did it.
All right, let's get on with it then. It is Saturday, May the 11th. This is After the Show. We're a movie review podcast. Every week we look at a new movie. This week, on episode 838, we're looking at the movie Immaculate. It's a 2024 release, out now, rated R, from our friends at Neon, who sent us a digital code so we could watch it. Cidtalk, give us a synopsis of the movie Immaculate.
Oh. A young nun has a very difficult time.
That's very good.
That's good.
I'll give you the one off the box. Cecilia, a woman of devout faith, is warmly welcomed to the picture-perfect Italian countryside, where she is offered a new role at an illustrious convent. But it becomes clear to Cecilia that her new home harbors dark and horrifying secrets.
I mean, that's just very generic.
Cidtalk, Immaculate, how did you like it?
Like is a weird word to apply. I enjoyed the journey of this young nun. We'll say that. It's not like a fun-loving kind of a movie. I mean, it could be, I suppose, for some people. Not for me.
It's not a fun-loving movie, but it's a nun-loving movie.
Oh, my.
Well, maybe not.
You were raised
actually, yes.
with nuns, so.
Yeah.
Did you have any trigger moments?
About nuns?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't raised with nuns.
You went to school with nuns at
I was
Catholic
at school
school.
with nuns,
yeah. So you're raised with nuns. I wasn't around nuns.
No. All the nuns that were at my Catholic school were actually fine. They were very nice people.
Nice.
They didn't have any horrifying secrets. I don't think. Or maybe they did.
Exactly. There were secrets.
It didn't trigger me in any way. But yeah, it did trigger me in a way because I don't like some of the things in this movie. Kind of creepy and
Are we
gross.
going to get to spoilers or are you going to be precious about this one?
No, we'll do spoilers. But we'll give you a warning now. We're going to talk about this movie in depth. Go and see it. I recommend you go and see it. I really enjoyed it.
Well, it's very specific.
Yeah.
But hey.
It's not for everybody.
You do what you got to do.
But you won't know if you're the person who likes it unless you watch it.
Absolutely.
So go and watch it anyway. If you're really super offended, it's not my fault. It's a horror movie, Cidtalk.
Correct.
I mean, is it framed as a horror movie?
It's an interesting twist on a horror movie.
Yeah.
Because what's horrific about it isn't like the blood that we see. You see some blood and some random murdering, but self-defense killing. But it's more like, as we know, the maniacal villain with the brain and the opportunity to do crazy shit. That is the horrific part.
The opening sequence happens, and then we get to the convent. And I thought we were in for like The Conjuring, like things flying all over the place. I thought it was that kind of movie because I wasn't sure. And it isn't that kind of movie at all, right? It's something I find more sinister than that.
Sinister for sure.
And more scary than that, because while this is a bit over the top, it also isn't.
You reckon?
But it also
it's
isn't.
just a
over the
tiny bit over, that's all.
I mean, it is just to make the movie more gratuitous and crazy. The other thing, the conjuring, things flying around and all that stuff doesn't scare me because I know that it's just bollocks, right? This stuff could be going on. It's just medical shit that's going on in this movie, right?
Right. Are we in spoiler territory yet?
Yeah, medical shit is going on in this movie.
Okay. Are we going in full spoiler? Are we just going to say, go watch it? And then.
Well, we said that. So, yeah, we're in
Okay.
full spoiler mode.
So, what we have here is a priest who reaches out to the world finding young women who are in the church, I'm assuming only.
Yeah.
We have a few examples of young women he has done this thing. He found this young woman whose parents are gone or dead, and she had some troubles, and then her church closed. And so it's like, as one character said, he has a talent for finding little birds with broken wings, right?
Exactly.
What he used to do before he was a priest was a biological scientist.
Yes.
Right. So then we're introduced early to the movie to a nail that's bent and it's in a precious box and no one touches it with their bare hands. That someone believes was one of the nails driven through on the cross at the crucifixion of the Jesus Christ.
Yes.
So he's a biologist. There's possible DNA on the nail. So I think you can all fill in the gaps from there. Young women estranged from their families.
Yeah.
And then the science begins unbeknownst to them.
And the movie's called Immaculate.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, yeah, the Immaculate Conception, it happens, but it's not quite what it seems. It is not.
It is.
Well, it's not immaculate what happened.
Well, what's immaculate? What's the definition? Just having a child without sin.
Yeah, that's what what the Popey guy said.
Oh, I guess there is a lot of sin involved. So it's not immaculate. You're right.
They sin the F out of it, don't they?
Just so everyone knows, I have no religion. I don't believe in any gods or of anything of any nature. And yet, I am a reasonably intelligent human being who can assess beliefs and concepts around beliefs and all that. And so don't worry if you're afraid I'm just going to be like anti-church, anti-Christ.
Well,
Christian.
I was brought up Catholic. After I had a decision to make, now you don't have to go to church anymore. I decided I'm not going to church anymore. Right. So that's where I am with religion. I understand it because I grew up through it, but I'm not really with it, if you get what I'm saying.
I ain't with it, man.
I ain't down with the Jesus. Down with the Jesus.
Oh my God, that's funny.
So yeah, that's where we stand. So this movie, while really shocking when you think about what they're dealing with topic-wise, it doesn't shock me as much as it probably does some other people, Right.
And as you go through, I'm convinced that this young nun is fully and completely devout. Like someone asks her when she's coming to the convent place where she's going. It's not like a standard convent. It is basically a hospice convent
in Italy.
Yeah, where older nuns come who are at the ends of their life. And so they're there to comfort them or whatever, right? So you're kind of tucked away in the mountains. No one's looking at you. You've got all the dying nuns. And so I think that this guy probably found this place and is like, ha ha ha, I can twirl my mustache and make my lair in this convent in the mountains, ha ha ha, and then create a clone of baby Jesus. That's how I
that's
see it.
Literally what this movie is.
Yeah.
And while that sounds mental, that's what it is.
It is, and it's not, and I'm saying it in a very cartoony way. It's not cartoony. This is done in a way that you're just like, I could actually plausibly, I could see a human being on this planet.
How this could unfold.
Yeah. I can see how a human being in the world today, ever in the world really, who's hooked on a belief and an idea could actually believe this is a thing to do and then try to make it happen. So that's what's creepy to me.
Yeah. The movie's gruesome, I would say.
It's got some gruesome.
They really go there with the stuff. It's unnerving. Especially, when she first arrives, it gave me the feeling of the movie Saltburn, where she was showing her around and they were going through all the different, and I'm like, oh, this is like a person coming into this established thing. They don't really know what they're in for when they're being introduced. And it was giving me the creeps there because I was like, clearly, this is a movie and it's probably a horror movie. I'm not sure yet, but this woman's not coming out of here the same, is she? Or is she coming out of here at all?
Well, because we're introduced to the place by having a young woman screaming and sneaking out at night, and then bad things happen to her and she doesn't get to leave. And then we're introduced to our young lady, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Is this a prison for nuns? I mean, I wasn't sure what was happening at first.
I mean, I wasn't actually sure what was happening up until it showed you what was happening. You know what I actually thought this movie was?
No,
I thought it was an elaborate ruse for the men of the church to have sex with women.
Oh, that's just too blatant. No.
That's what I thought it was.
I actually clocked it as soon as I'm looking at the name of the movie, I'm seeing what's going on, and then I was almost 100% on point by about 20 minutes in.
You actually knew, you were thinking they have a laboratory they're doing, and they're trying to make a Jesus
Immaculate conception
Christ.
In the 21st century would absolutely be artificial insemination. And the one thing I didn't count on, because as I was exploring this idea in the first little bit, I'm like, yeah, but who's the father? Is this guy the father? And then they revealed the whole Jesus DNA, and I was like, I did not see that part coming.
Yeah, that's the part where you're like, what? And what happens if this Jesus DNA baby gets out there? What happens then?
What do you mean?
Like, is it Jesus?
That's my question, obviously, as a person who
is it like a religious savior again? Or, you know
who's going to believe you?
Yeah, exactly.
Who in the world is going to believe this? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And also, it really goes there.
Yeah, it does.
I'm thinking of the very end scene.
Yep.
That actually really...
We won't spoil that.
If you get, I won't. But if you're gonna be offended by the religious implications and all that part might... Well, you'll have already turned off at that point,
absolutely.
Right?
You aren't, yeah.
You'll have turned off way before
You're not going to make it to that.
So if you stick in there till the end, you're good. You get something.
I don't know about that. I think I'm okay with the ending and I totally grasp it.
I actually think this film is excellent.
I think it's making a big statement about a woman being obligated to the ties of any organization that uses her physically, emotionally as disposable. Because there's one scene in the movie where they're doing a little a ultrasound of the baby and something had happened. And he's like, oh, the baby's okay. And she looks at the priest and they keep talking about the baby, whatever. And she's like, well, I'm not okay. And he just looks at her like, so? Yeah. And she goes, I need to go to a hospital. And he's like, oh, no. So that she's disposable. She's easy to get rid of when we've seen them already dispose of a couple of different young women, that her body is theirs to do what they want with. And I do feel that is part of the big messaging here, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that's my interpretation. And so this young woman, and I'm not a believer in anything, but I believe this young character truly still believes throughout everything that happens in the whole movie that her God is maybe this is something she has to do, and it's vicious and it's terrible and all that throughout. But I believe she still believes. I don't think she's clocked out. I think she thinks these men are evil.
Yeah, this is what I'm here for.
Yeah, that my God has put me here to stop these men, where their question to her was, if we weren't supposed to be doing this,
why are we doing it?
Why wouldn't God stop us?
Yeah, why do we keep doing it all the time?
Yeah, I think that occurred to her at some point. So I believe she truly still believes, and she is as vicious as it gets. She's like, this can't, I must be sent to solve this problem by my God, right? I mean, I wouldn't approach it that way, but I believe she does. So I think she is true to her. She's the only one who's true to herself in the whole movie. Yeah.
And I think God and the church and all that kind of thing is always a good basis for a creepy movie. Some of the movies, I was thinking of The Omen in particular, about a devil child. I was thinking this could have been a devil child as well.
I don't know. We weren't presented with that information.
No. Who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you put some information on top of that of yourself, like these people doing this thing that's maybe against the Lord's will, might you end up with the other guy? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. The other guy.
Yeah. That was kind of going around in my head at the end, but I was like, yeah, this is quite really good. And you know what else I liked about it? The fact that they committed to filming it in Italy with mostly Italian.
Not just in Italy, in Rome.
In Rome. Yes.
That's bold, man.
Yeah. And I said to you at the end, who the hell would let them use a church to film this movie? But we found out later that it's an Italian villa that they used as a church convent. It looks very convincing. It's amazing looking, this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They use mostly Italian actors. They use subtitles when they're talking to each other. I mean, there is English language in there as well, but it's like they committed to it properly. Didn't try and Americanize it, even though she's an American nun coming in here. Nobody else is. So
right, but that makes her character even more believable that she would be a target for them because she's from far away. No one's going to know her. Again, she's disposable. So her being completely American and not even speaking Italian, because she never planned to come to a convent.
Exactly.
They found her. This guy found her. So I was like, that makes sense. It doesn't always make sense when you've got like the British person stuck in the middle of France or the American stuck in the middle of Italy, but this one did.
I think it was particularly well made. It has some really scary sound design with the
Yes. Oh my word.
Like there's a lot of like weird little screams that come from nowhere. Like it's like, is somebody screaming over there really far away? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah. And that sound behind.
Yes.
Oh my God. There was a moment I actually turned around. I'm like, what the hell?
And you're not usually like it. You know, sound doesn't.
No,
but I think
this was like, there was some scrapey, like, like a moany, like a vomity sound. And I'm like, I turned because it sounded like it came from right behind you. And I was like, holy crap.
If it's got good sound design, a horror movie, it adds extra to it. Sometimes in this movie, they play with it's very quiet and now it isn't really quickly.
Right.
And it does make you on edge a little bit. So let's get on to the cast here. We've got Sydney Sweeney as Sister Cecilia. We saw her last in Reality.
Reality, yep.
Which was an awesome movie, and she was brilliant in it. I also believe this is an awesome movie, and she was brilliant in it. What do you think?
Yes, very good. She is convincing.
She does a lot of acting with just looking, which I always find fascinating.
Absolutely.
She doesn't really have to say anything. You get what's going on in her head. She's just, very emotive.
I mean, in this story, mostly it's confusion and fear.
Yeah.
But she does it very well.
That scream, the guttural scream that she does to the camera.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's very good. How can somebody scream that long? It was a one take, apparently. I just read about it. Well, it was 2 takes, but they used the first take.
Right.
They tried it twice, but it was never better than the first time. We've got Alvaro Morte as Father Sal. I thought it was the guy from Preacher, the Dominic guy from Preacher, or his brother or something.
Nah. I mean, I didn't, but I get what you're saying.
What do you think of him?
Creepy, but generic, sadly, right? There was no...
He creeped me out a lot.
He did, and I do understand the line between the mustache twirling. And if you don't know what I mean by mustache twirling, like all the villains in old cartoons had big, long black mustaches, and they would twirl their mustache with their finger while they're like, oh. Okay, so he's not that fully.
No.
I mean, his demented view of things and what he's thinking of doing is, and the process that we've got to get there. So remember this too. In every other movie where we're trying to clone something over the years, different stories, there are the obligatory jars full of formaldehyde, presumably.
Yes.
And failures of the past that they have done. And so once you know that about him, and he's sort of like extra calm but him as the performer person, I forget already, right? So I guess I needed to pump up the villainousness just a little bit more.
Right.
But, I mean, I was creeped out by him. That's good enough, I guess.
We've got Simona Tabasco as Sister Mary, the nun who was kind of like her a bit. She liked drinking the wine and stuff.
I can't remember.
You know who I'm talking about.
The friend.
Yeah, the friend, yeah.
Might have been.
She was really good, though, because that nun has a moment, doesn't she, where...
Yes. She tells everybody they're full of shit.
I mean, everybody's like just a regular nun, but then when she sits down at first to talk to this girl, you're like, nah, this girl's a little bit different to everybody else.
She's got tattoos. She tells the story of, you know, she had an abusive boyfriend, and then she's like, these nuns came around, and I was like, sure, this sounds good.
Yeah.
She wasn't like...
But she hasn't left the old world behind completely.
Right.
Yeah.
And when it's time to tell everybody they're full of shit, that's what this lady does.
We've got Dora Romano as Mother Superior. Very creepy and not nice.
No, screw that lady. I mean, I don't know if she deserved what she got, but she was bad.
And we've got Giorgio Calangi as Cardinal Franco. Cardinals really, they all give me the creeps in a weird way.
Yeah.
You know the parts where she has to do confessional? Those parts are the creepiest parts. I find confessional in general to be a creepy thing. Especially if you think about it as the person that you're confessing to isn't like, maybe they're not good. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Yes. Can't be trusted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to trust them 100%. You can tell them everything. But imagine if they're not that. So that makes it super creepy to me.
Absolutely.
And I had to do confessional every week when I was at school. It sucked. Sunday night, every week, confessional. And you had to always say something like, you couldn't say, I haven't done anything wrong this week.
I'm perfect.
Yeah. So you always had to come up with something. So you just come up with some bullshit. Like, I was late for school. You know?
That's good enough.
And then they'll say, well, say 100 Hail Marys and I'll see you next week when you've been bad again. You know, you'll have been bad again. That was basically what it was.
I don't understand any of it. I do understand intellectually, academically. I'm not an idiot. I understand belief in following rituals and coping with the world and even believing in things that, you know, you don't see and you don't know if they exist for real. I get all that. But then the front part of my brain is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Right? Seriously.
Yeah.
To have a child sit in a booth with a man that you don't fucking know or possibly don't know, or who has someone you may not even trust just because he's creepy or weird or don't know him. And then you're supposed to say, I pulled somebody's hair. And for that, you're going to burn for eternity unless you say this phrase 10 times.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not mocking it. I just want to get it. And these kinds of movies kind of bubble it all up to the surface. And then imagining you as a child, because you're like one of the most I don't know what the word is. You're just a nice, good person.
But yeah,
and so to make you as a child feel like you're going to burn in a hell that someone's told you about, and unless you do these rituals, it feels like unreasonable.
It does. But that's a whole nother podcast.
It is a whole other, yeah, I'm not on the religious discussion, Paul. Come on.
All right, directed by Michael Mohan. He directed The Voyeurs, which also had Sydney Sweeney in it, which we didn't see, but it's a Netflix movie. What do you think of his directing?
I feel like it's one of those where I feel like the person had a vision, and this was the vision, and I feel like it was fulfilled. And I feel like that is an excellent job of the director, who is essentially this creative project director, or project manager, you know what I mean? And got some good moments from people. I feel like that's always a major skill as well for a director. Like, now, what we didn't say is that Sydney Sweeney, who's the star of the film, she also paid to buy the script.
Yes.
Found the producer, the director, she moved it forward. And so her performance and all the different scenes and the scream and the fear, and then the other moments where you're just like, woman, I want to save you. You know, like, I want to help you get out of this.
She threw herself into it.
Yes. So I feel like she's off of each other. Whatever goodness was there in that relationship creatively, it really worked.
I think so too. IMDB reviews, what are those?
Those are reviews where people give things like one little star and then they say things like, it's the worst movie ever made, or it's woke, or waste of my time. And you like to make fun of it.
This is making fun of my church or something like that.
Yeah, but do you think those people would have watched the whole thing?
I don't think so.
I guess you can go make a review without actually having watched it.
Probably some walkouts in the theater on this one, I would imagine.
I imagine you're right.
Yeah. First person says, it's just a straight boring movie following all the same tropes. I'm all in for Sydney Sweeney. She's gotten very famous recently, but she's so flat, unconvincing, and she screams terribly. The other actors feel much more natural, so a different casting wouldn't save this.
She screams terribly.
I mean, I think it's one of the best screams I've heard.
How many screams have you ever heard in your life?
Exactly.
That was pretty good.
All right, the second guy says, blasphemy. Sleepy nonsense with too many boring and meaningless long shots. The cinematography is boring and stiff. It's a boring waste of time and money. Watch it at triple speed and you'll see short-sighted, trivial, tasteless, and lengthy movie. That's it.
Okay. Well, it's a lot, but hey, okay. Watch it. They say to watch it.
They do.
I mean, if you hate something, why would you recommend it? I don't know.
And the third one says, it's so bad. I hate horror movies, but I decided to watch this one because Sydney is my favorite actress. The movie is horrible. I've seen a lot of her work, and this is the worst work she's ever done. The plot is so bad. It's full of blasphemy, and the acting wasn't the best. There's disgusting scenes, and they're all unnecessary. And overall, the movie's a waste of time and money. Mostly, I didn't like it because I'm very religious, and the plot is screaming blasphemy and making fun of my religion, especially the Holy Mary. This movie didn't have demons and stuff. It's got a lot worse than that. It's not worth watching, in my opinion.
I'm very religious, and yet I watched a movie called Immaculate.
Yes.
That's not under the what's it called nowadays? Faith-based movie.
No, it's definitely not in those.
Yeah, look for that on the cover or on the production. Look up your production company, your director, your actors, and if it says faith-based, and it's called Immaculate, then
watch that one.
Go watch that one. If it isn't, then I mean, it's like poking yourself with the needle and then going, ow, that needle, that really hurt to poke myself with the needle, and then keep doing it. Like, I know the needle is sharp is my point. And so if I poke myself with it, it's going to hurt.
And I mean, the poster has Sydney Sweeney as a nun with blood on her collar.
Correct.
I mean, that kind of says something.
Yeah. You've seen Shark Tank. Just look at that and go, I'm out.
Exactly. All right. So extras, we didn't see any extras, but we can give this movie a score. I'm going to give Immaculate an 8 out of 10.
Whoa.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Massive.
I think it's a horror movie that delivers.
Nice.
Yes. Thank you.
Very good. I'm going to give it like a 7.5 because I like it. I enjoyed the thinking process of it. It looks gorgeous. It's just that it does have that really ever pushing presence of the messageology. Was that a word?
Yes. No.
But I do think it's good. It's quality.
All right. Thank you to Neon. Next week, we're going to be looking at Dune Part 2. So, Cidtalk, you need to do homework on what happened in Dune Part 1.
I do.
Because
that would be you reading me the synopsis.
Yeah, probably. Movie recommendations. I decided to go on a nun tip.
Okay.
Movies with some nuns in them. First one is Killer Nun. Do you remember Killer Nun? Did you ever watch Killer Nun?
I don't think so.
It's a movie from 1979, and it's a revenge nun movie.
Okay.
It's full of nudity. It's full of violence. It's full of drugs.
Is it appropriate for the 21st century?
It's one of those, like, you know, when we see the Italian movies on the Horror Channel, it's one of those. But when I was a child, a Catholic child, teenager, the Killer Nun VHS was in the living room. This wasn't with my Catholic grandparents. I'd been fostered at this time, so I was with a foster family. They happened to have the Killer Nun, and I watched it one afternoon while nobody was in. And I was like, Killer Nun, awesome. Love it.
Why did your foster parents have Kill or None.
The father was very into like exploitation type movies, I guess. He had a lot of that stuff, you know?
Okay.
So yeah, I watched that, and I remember watching it thinking, I shouldn't be watching this probably, but this was awesome. So that was a Kill or None. And the other movie I want to recommend is Doubt.
Oh, Doubt.
Yeah, with Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of my favorites, Amy Adams and Meryl Streep. It was fantastic. And that is a movie that will shake you a little bit.
Absolutely.
Concerning religion and everything. So,
and it's not like this. It's not like a horror movie. It is it's just a real life examination. Well, you know, a fictional examination of real life issues within the Catholic Church.
Yes. And
it's
harrowing.
70s? Was it said? Or was it modern? Yeah. I can't remember now.
No, I think it was the 70s. Maybe. It's been a long time since we watched it. Like 20 years probably.
Oh, God. Oh.
So what are yours? Recommendations?
My recommendations are going back to the 20th century. That's from 1900 to 1999. If any of you kids don't know, it's the 1900s. And these are movies in the adventure category. They're just movies I've seen. I'm not attesting to their quality here. And they are Ravenous, which was Begbie. You know, Begbie.
Yes, I remember that one.
Right. A little bit of cannibalism going on there. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which I think was overrated.
That was the art gallery one, right?
I think so.
Yep.
Jerry, which we just discussed the other day.
Yeah.
It's got Jason Bourne and the very sad guy from Manchester on Leeds.
Casey Affleck.
It's called Casey Affleck. And it's an interesting examination of two dudes who get lost in the desert. Then we have The Blue Lagoon, which is tragically probably awful, and I never want to see it again, but I have seen it. And Castaway. Oh, yeah.
Castaway is very good.
Is it? We haven't seen it since, so I don't know. You never know, do you, when you're going to revisit something?
No, I do believe it was high quality, and I always like those kind of stories, you know. Was that based on a true story? It was, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
No, I think it was. The FedEx guy.
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Well,
do you think there's a guy who lived on an island for 7 years?
Yes.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
All right. Thank you, Cidtalk. Ascully stuff. I've been playing a couple of games this week. The first one's called Rainbow Cotton. You've not seen or heard about this, so I'll tell you about it.
Okay.
What it is Cotton is a long-running Japanese video game series. And the last time I played one was on the Dreamcast. And that's where this game comes in. It's a HD remake of the Dreamcast game. But they've like messed with it. So Cotton, what it basically is, it's like a bullet hell shooter. Do you know what that is, Cidtalk?
I can probably glean from the words what it is.
It's like side-scrolling, old arcadey style. You're a character that goes from left to right, and stuff comes into the screen and shoots at you, and you've got to take it all down without getting killed.
You're a character that goes left to right.
Yeah, there's lots of bullets on the screen, hence bullet hell. You got to dodge everything and take out the enemies. So that's what the old game was on the Dreamcast. Now, what they've done here is made like a 3D version of it, which there's also the 2D version in the game as well. But there's also a 3D version of it where it's the same thing. You're like a witch on a broomstick. You're flying. You've got all kinds of weapons.
Okay.
It's really fancy, very colorful. That was what Cotton was famous for, being super colorful and cutesy. Now, this one, I really enjoy it because it's a real throwback. It's not very complicated. You're not leveling anything up. You're just trying to get through each level, you know, like the old days when games were very simple. But what I really like about it is this new 3D version. It reminds me of the game Rez, which I really like, where you lock onto enemies and fire. And it also reminds me of like old like Space Harrier and Afterburner, those type of games. So it's called Rainbow Cotton. It's available May the 9th, so you can get that now on Steam, Nintendo Switch, PS5, PS4, Xbox, basically everything. You can get this. It's really fun. If you remember that old Dreamcast game fondly, this is a new way to play it. So that's the first game I've been playing. The second game I've been playing is really a cool game. It's called Headed Out. And it's a driving game, Sid. So you probably think this was made for me, this game. This is a game where you drive from one side of America to the other. And it's kind of in the style of Sin City. It's black and white with like colors occasionally. You're like this unknown dude who's traveling across America. And as you're traveling across America, you're doing races and you're driving through these different places. When you stop at certain places, you've got like stories that unfold, kind of like a Telltale game. You choose like, oh, this is what I would do. And then it gives you a response. So it can be different every time. And there's all these different, they're called on the road stories. You're like going off to the side and you're doing this little story. You might stop in St. Louis, for instance, and you speak to this nun, and then something happens between you and the nun, and you can choose which way you want that to go. And then you get back in your car. Maybe somebody pulls up at the side of you and they want to race with you. And as you're going along this journey, you're getting more famous because people are hearing of this guy on the road and he's doing these things. And then sometimes you're driving and the radio station kicks in and the DJ's talking about you. So it's like this cool, it's like a homage to like 70s and driver movies, like, Vanishing Point, that kind of thing, but also mixed with this going across America, Telltale game with the story. There's a lot of choices you make. And then when you get to the end of a run, it tells you like, oh, this, you did these choices and this is where you are morally. Because there's some really effed up situations that happen on the road. Okay. It's not for kids.
Okay.
Because it really goes there. It's great. The actual cutscenes are kind of done like a graphic novel. They're not animated. They're just really well drawn, but with a decision at the bottom of the page. It has a load of text, and then at the bottom, it's like, what do you do? Do you run from this, or do you stick around? And what you choose actually makes it so what happens next, So you're actually building your own story as you go across America. It's called Headed Out. It's on Steam. It's $17.99, which isn't a bad price for a game. It seems like a game made for me because I love games where you have to drive a long way.
You do. You like anything you have to do with something a lot.
Yeah. See, when I was a kid, I had this game, I had a Commodore 64 computer, really rudimentary graphics,
Wow, you were from the 1900s.
Yeah. And there was this game I played on there. I don't actually remember the name of it. Great American Road Race or something like that. But it was rudimentary. You went but it let you do this race that lasted 2 or 3 hours. So you were going across America and you hit all the different states and, Missouri was like a different color to another state. There wasn't really much, but in my mind, I was playing I'm doing this massive long road trip, So since that game, whatever that game was on the Commodore 64, I've always said why don't people make a game where you're in this cool, road trip? Well, this is one. And the other one is Need for Speed The Run, which came out several years ago. But nobody else has really touched that genre, whatever that is. So, Cidtalk, what's for dinner?
Well, I'm debating. We're either going to have pot pies with chips / roasted potatoes. We like to call them chips. Or some takeaway. So, I haven't decided. What do you prefer?
I like pot pies.
It does sound good and easy, and I don't have to go anywhere, but you won't have any soda pop. So kind of a choice you're going to have to make. Yeah. And that it? Is that it?
That's it for dinner. What's your advice?
My advice is, and I don't know what you can apply this to, but if you want to break the rules with credibility, so I'm thinking art, discussing different topics, different things in life. I do gardeny stuff and I break a lot of rules, but I break the rules knowing the rules. So I know not to put 10 different plants in a pot that's only 14 inches across. I know this rule. I know why the rule exists. I understand. And then I break it because then I understand how to troubleshoot when it breaks, when the system isn't working. And then I'm like, oh, that's why it's a rule. But if you want to break the rules, know the rules. So if you want to break the rules of creating art, like painting or drawing, I do agree with the concept of that old-fashioned notion that at least you are educated about the fundamentals, right? So if you want to know how to cook or do art or work on cars or be a teacher, whatever, computer programmer, knowing the foundation, right, the rules, is a really good idea. It doesn't mean you always have to follow them or that you have to preach them then to the next, live. Some people will, of course, but I just think if you want to break the rules, just take the time to learn the rules, even if it's 5 TikTok videos that teach you the terminology and the words and the basic thing. And then it's in your mind that so in order for me to learn how to draw, I should understand how to do gestural drawing or whatever the foundation is, wherever you're learning it. That's it. If you're going to break the rules, know the rules.
Know the rules, man.
Yeah, know the rules. If you want to do it with credibility is kind of where I was going with that.
All right, ascully.com. That's the place you can go to get this podcast. You can also go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're also on iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube. We're also on TikTok. We do a little short on there each week, which will give you a link to the podcast. You can email feedback to me, ascully@ascully.com. Do not email Cidtalk. She doesn't want your email. And stay classy, Sydney Sweeney. Be interesting to see what you do next, because this one really went there.
And I'm going to say think for yourself, because if you're not doing it, someone's doing it for you.